Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane takes a special kind of crazy. That's what everyone said. You had to be mad to volunteer for the airborne, to trust your life to silk and static lines, to drop into enemy territory in the middle of the night, knowing you'd be scattered, outnumbered, alone. They were right. We were crazy. But on June 6th, 1944, that madness was exactly what the world needed. Or so they told us. The reality was messier, bloodier, more terrifying than any training could prepare you for. D-Day wasn't like the movies, wasn't glorious or heroic or clean. It was chaos and darkness and boys dying in French hedgerows while trying to figure out where the hell they were. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Daniel Carter, Staff Sergeant, 101st Airborne Division, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. 22 years old in June 1944, farm kid from Iowa. Joined up after Pearl Harbor like half the boys in my town. Could have gone regular infantry, but something about the airborne appealed to me. The challenge, the elite status, the extra $50 a month jump pay. Mostly, I think I wanted to prove something to myself. To my father, who'd fought in the First War and came back broken. Wanted to show I could be a soldier, could do something that mattered. Airborne training at Fort Benning was brutal. Physical conditioning that broke men, jump training that scared everyone. You learned to exit an aircraft, to control your chute, to hit the ground properly, to fight immediately after landing. They made it seem almost routine. Jump, land, fight. Simple. Nothing about D-Day was simple. We'd been training in England for months, knew something big was coming. The invasion everyone talked about, opening the Second Front, taking the fight to Hitler in France. We were going to be the tip of the spear, jumping hours before the beach landings to secure key positions behind enemy lines. The briefing started in late May. Maps, aerial photos, models of the Normandy countryside. Our objectives: take the causeways behind Utah Beach, destroy bridges, capture the town of Sainte-Mère-Église, cause chaos in German rear areas, make it sound so tactical, so organized, drop zones marked precisely, assembly points identified, timing calculated to the minute, everything planned perfectly. They didn't mention that we'd be jumping at night into unknown territory, that we'd be scattered by wind and anti-aircraft fire, that most of us would land miles from our drop zones, that we'd be alone in the dark in enemy-occupied France with Germans hunting us. Or maybe they did mention it and we just didn't understand, didn't grasp what it really meant until we were living it. June 5th. The order came down. Tonight. We're going tonight. After all the waiting, all the training, all the preparation, it was finally happening. I wrote a letter to my parents, kept it simple, said I loved them, said I was doing my duty, said I'd see them when the war was over. Didn't mention that I was scared, that I thought there was a good chance I'd die in France, that I wasn't sure what we were really fighting for anymore. Sealed it. Gave it to the chaplain with instructions to mail it if I didn't come back. He took it without comment. He had a stack of them. We loaded onto C-47s around 2,200 hours. 64 pounds of equipment. Main chute, reserve chute, rifle, ammunition, grenades, rations, everything we'd need to fight behind enemy lines. So heavy I could barely walk, could barely climb into the aircraft. The plane was packed. 18 paratroopers sitting on metal benches facing each other, trying to look confident, trying not to show fear. All of us thinking the same thing. Will I survive the night? The engines roared to life. We taxied, took off into the gathering darkness, headed toward France, toward history, toward a night that would change everything. I looked around at my stick. These men I'd trained with for months, friends, brothers, wondered how many would survive, wondered if I'd survive. The jump master gave us the 20-minute warning. Time to stand up, hook up, check equipment. My hands were shaking, not from cold, from fear, from knowing that in minutes I'd be jumping into darkness over occupied France, that everything I'd trained for was about to become terrifyingly real. The red light came on. Stand in the door. Wait for green. This was it. No going back, just forward, into the darkness, into history, into hell. The light turned green. Go! And I jumped into the night over Normandy, into the chaos that would become D-Day. The first thing I noticed was the flak, tracers streaking up from the ground, orange and red lines cutting through the darkness, anti-aircraft fire everywhere. The Germans knew we were coming. The C-47s were taking hits. I could hear the metal pinging as shrapnel tore through the fuselage. The plane was banking hard, turning, trying to evade, completely off course from where we were supposed to be. My chute opened with a jerk. Thank God. Always that moment of fear. Will it open? Then relief when it does. I was floating down through the darkness, could see other chutes around me, could see planes burning, falling from the sky, could see tracers still coming up, Germans shooting at us as we descended, completely helpless, just hanging there hoping a bullet didn't find you. I hit the ground hard. Wrong. Landed in water, deep water, a flooded field. The Germans had opened the dams, flooded the low areas behind the beaches. Nobody had told us. The weight of my equipment pulled me down. I was sinking, drowning, had to cut away my reserve chute, my musette bag, my rifle, everything, just to stay afloat. Struggled to shore, gasping, soaking wet, barely alive, and completely lost. Had no idea where I was. Could have been miles from my drop zone. Could have been anywhere in Normandy. Just knew I was alone, in the dark, in enemy territory. The training kicked in. Find cover, get oriented, locate other paratroopers. We had clickers, little metal cricket toys that made a clicking sound. 2 clicks meant friendly. You'd click. If you got 2 clicks back, you knew it was safe. I clicked. Nothing. Clicked again. Still nothing. I was alone. Started moving, stayed low, followed the hedgerows, those thick Norman hedges that made every field a natural fortress. No idea where I was going, just moving, away from the sounds of German voices, toward, I hoped, other Americans. Found Private Wilson after maybe an hour. Kid from Texas, 19 years old. He'd landed in a tree, broken his leg getting down, couldn't walk, couldn't fight. Just sat there in pain while we figured out what to do. We couldn't stay. Germans were everywhere, searching the fields, killing paratroopers they found. We'd heard stories from Sicily and Italy about what happened to captured airborne. The SS didn't take prisoners from paratroopers. I gave Wilson morphine, told him to hide, that we'd come back for him when we could. He looked at me with terrified eyes, knew I was lying, knew he'd either be captured or die in that hedgerow. But what choice did we have? Couldn't carry him, couldn't stay with him, had to complete the mission, had to find our unit, had to do what we came to do. I left him there, never saw him again, don't know what happened to him. That's one of many things I carry from that night. Found more paratroopers as dawn approached, scattered groups of men from different units, different drop zones, all lost, all trying to figure out what to do. We formed impromptu teams, 20 men from 5 different companies, led by whoever had the highest rank and seemed to know what they were doing. That ended up being me, staff sergeant, so I was in charge, responsible for 19 other men, most of them scared kids who'd never seen combat, looking to me for leadership, for orders, for hope. I had no idea what I was doing, just tried to remember the training, tried to sound confident, tried to figure out where we were and what our mission should be. We could hear fighting everywhere, small arms fire, explosions, Germans and Americans clashing in the darkness. The invasion was happening, but it was chaos. Nothing like the neat plans they'd briefed us on. We encountered German positions at dawn, machine gun nest in a hedgerow. They saw us first, opened fire. 2 of my men went down immediately, just dropped, dead before they hit the ground. The rest of us returned fire, threw grenades, rushed the position, killed the Germans. 3 of them, young, probably as scared as we were. But they'd shot first, so they died. That was my first combat. First time I'd killed anyone. It happened so fast, I didn't have time to think about it. See enemy, shoot enemy, move on. The training made it automatic, made it mechanical. Would think about it later. Would think about those German boys and wonder who they'd been, if they'd had families, if anyone mourned them. But in the moment, there was only survival, only the mission, only getting through the next minute. We pushed forward, toward what we thought was our objective, toward the sounds of heavier fighting, toward the beach where we knew the main invasion was happening. The sun came up, June 6th, 1944, D-Day, the beginning of the end for Hitler, the liberation of Europe, the Great Crusade. From where I stood, it was just confusion and death, just scared men trying not to die, trying to complete missions they barely understood, trying to make sense of chaos. We jumped into Normandy to secure the invasion, to make D-Day possible, and we did. Somehow, despite everything going wrong, despite the scattered drops and the flooded fields and the Germans hunting us, we fought and died and survived and called it victory. But it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. Not with Wilson left behind. Not with those dead German boys. Not with 2 of my men killed in our first firefight. Just felt like we were still alive, still fighting, still trying to make it through a day that had started in darkness and would end in blood. By mid-morning, we'd made contact with a larger group from the 506, found Colonel Sink setting up a command post near Sainte-Mère-Église. Turned out we'd dropped miles from our designated zone. Most of the division was scattered across Normandy. Units were at maybe 30% strength. Equipment was lost. Communication was spotty. But we were accomplishing the mission. Somehow. Small groups of paratroopers causing havoc behind German lines, taking out artillery positions, blocking reinforcements, creating enough chaos that the beach landings could succeed. The Germans were confused, didn't know where we all were, didn't know our strength. Reports said some German units thought we were a full division instead of scattered remnants. The chaos worked in our favor. But it was still hell. Close quarters combat in hedgerows, Germans in every field, every road a potential ambush, every farmhouse a potential strong point. And we were undersupplied, ammunition running low, no heavy weapons, just rifles and whatever we'd managed to keep when we landed. We pushed toward the causeways behind Utah Beach. That was our primary objective. Keep those roads open so troops from the beach could move inland. The Germans knew how important they were, fought hard to hold them. The fighting around Causeway 2 was the worst. Germans had fortified positions, machine guns, mortars. They had clear fields of fire across open ground. We had to take it anyway. Lieutenant Harrison led the assault. Good officer, brave, maybe too brave. He stood up to direct fire, took a burst from a German MG-42, just cut him in half. Upper body nearly separated from lower. He was dead before he hit the ground. That's when I took command. Not because I wanted to, because I was next in line, because someone had to, because men were looking for orders and I was the one who had to give them. I called in what artillery support we could get, organized a flanking attack, used smoke grenades to cover our movement. Basic infantry tactics learned at Fort Benning, put into practice in a Norman field with real bullets and real consequences. We took the position, lost 6 men doing it, killed maybe a dozen Germans, secured the causeway. Mission accomplished. But looking at our dead, Harrison with his body torn apart, Rodriguez with half his face gone, Patterson just lying there staring at the sky, it was hard to feel accomplished, hard to feel anything except sick. The hedgerow fighting continued all day. Little battles, small unit actions, paratroopers and Germans killing each other in ancient farmland. The bocage country was a nightmare. Every hedge was chest high. Every field was a separate battlefield. You couldn't see more than 50 yards. Perfect for defense, hell for attack. We found more of our scattered company throughout the day. 20 men here, 15 there, slowly reconstituting. But we were still at half strength. Half our men either dead, wounded, captured, or still lost somewhere in Normandy. Found Sergeant Mitchell's body in the afternoon. He'd been in my barracks back in England. Good man. Funny. Always telling stories. He'd landed in a tree like Wilson. But the Germans had found him first. They'd shot him while he hung there, just executed him, left him hanging in his harness. We cut him down, took his dog tags, moved on. No time for burial, no time for grief. Just catalog the dead and keep fighting. That's what D-Day was. Keep fighting, keep moving, keep killing, keep surviving. One hedgerow at a time, one German position at a time, one dead friend at a time. By evening, we could hear the naval bombardment, could see the flashes on the horizon, the fleet supporting the beach landings, thousands of ships, thousands of guns, the largest invasion in history happening just miles away. We were doing our job, keeping the Germans occupied, preventing reinforcements from reaching the beaches, making D-Day possible. But it didn't feel historic, didn't feel momentous, just felt like survival, just felt like another day of war compressed into the worst 24 hours imaginable. We dug in for the night, set up defensive positions, posted guards, tried to rest, but none of us could sleep. Too much adrenaline, too much fear, too many images of dead friends. I sat in a foxhole and tried to process what had happened. We'd jumped into Normandy 12 hours ago. 12 hours. Felt like a lifetime. Felt like I'd aged years in a single day. Thought about Wilson left behind with his broken leg. About Lieutenant Harrison cut in half. About Mitchell executed in his harness. About the German boys we'd killed. About all of it. Wondered what my father would think. He'd fought in the First War. France, too. Different war, but same country. Same kind of killing. Had he felt like this? Had he seen friends die and kept fighting? Had he wondered what it was all for? I understood him better now. Understood why he'd come back broken. Why he never talked about it. Why he'd tried to stop me from enlisting. He'd known. Known what war really was. Known what it would do to me. And I hadn't listened. Hadn't understood. Thought I knew better. Now I knew. Knew exactly what he'd tried to spare me from. Knew why men came back from war changed. Knew why some never really came home at all. The night was punctuated by gunfire, small skirmishes, German patrols, our patrols. The fighting never really stopped, just ebbed and flowed, intensified and quieted, but never ended. D-Day, the longest day. They'd call it that in the history books. From our perspective, it felt endless, like it would never end, like we'd be fighting in these Norman hedgerows forever. But dawn came, June 7th, D-Day +1. We'd survived, not all of us, but enough. Enough to keep fighting, enough to push forward, enough to start the long road to Berlin. I looked at what was left of my company. Half the men gone, the survivors exhausted, traumatized, changed, but still standing, still capable of fighting. That's what the airborne was. Not the elite paratroopers from recruitment posters, just boys who'd been thrown into chaos and somehow survived, who'd fought through darkness and confusion and death, who'd accomplished the mission despite everything going wrong. We'd secured the flanks, made D-Day possible, paid the price for victory in blood and trauma and lost innocence. The history books would call it a success, the greatest generation, the heroes who saved the world. But standing there in that Norman field, surrounded by dead friends and dead enemies, all I felt was hollow, empty, changed in ways I didn't yet understand, but knew would last forever. D-Day wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of carrying this, of living with what we'd done and seen, of being haunted by boys we'd left behind, and we still had a whole war left to fight. The hedgerow fighting continued for weeks. The breakout from Normandy wasn't quick or clean. Every field had to be taken, every hedgerow fought for. The Germans defended stubbornly, made us pay for every yard. We stayed in combat for 33 days straight. No relief, no rest, just constant fighting in that nightmare bocage country. Men got killed. We got replacements. They got killed, got more replacements. The cycle never ended. You stopped learning names after a while. The replacements were just bodies, rifle carriers. They'd arrive fresh and scared, and within days they'd be dead or wounded or hardened like the rest of us. No point getting attached, no point making friends. The missions blurred together. Take this town, hold that crossroads, clear this hedgerow, all the same, all deadly, all grinding us down physically and mentally. I got promoted to platoon sergeant, not because I'd done anything special, just because everyone senior to me was dead or evacuated. Suddenly, I was responsible for 40 men, making life and death decisions, sending boys into combat knowing some wouldn't come back. That's the part they don't tell you about leadership, that you'll order men to their deaths, that you'll make tactical decisions that result in casualties, that you'll have to choose who takes point, who goes first through a door, who checks for mines. And sometimes those choices mean someone dies. Private Edwards died because I ordered him to scout ahead. Stepped on a mine. Both legs blown off. Died screaming while we tried to stop the bleeding. He was 18, from Minnesota, in country for 6 days. Did I make the right call? Someone had to scout. We needed to know what was ahead. But why him? Why not someone else? Why not me? Those questions don't have answers. But you ask them anyway. Every night. Every time you close your eyes. Every time you remember their faces. The replacements kept coming, but we weren't the same unit anymore. The men who'd jumped on D-Day, the originals, we were down to maybe 20%. The rest were new, good men, brave men, but they hadn't been there, hadn't lived through that first night, didn't carry the same weight. We pulled out of Normandy in mid-July, sent back to England to rest and refit. Should have been relief, should have been recovery. Instead, it was just waiting for the next jump, the next mission, the next chance to die. The nightmares started during the rest period. When you're fighting, you don't have time to process, to think, to feel. But in England, with nothing to do but wait, it all caught up with me. I'd dream about D-Day, about drowning in that flooded field, about Wilson with his broken leg, about Harrison cut in half, about Mitchell hanging in his tree. Wake up sweating, heart racing, unable to get back to sleep. Tried drinking. That helped some, numbed everything, made the memories fuzzy, but couldn't drink all the time. Couldn't be drunk when the next mission came. We jumped into Holland in September. Operation Market Garden. Another airborne assault, this time in daylight. This time we could see what we were jumping into. Not sure if that was better or worse. The jump itself was cleaner, better visibility, less scattered. We actually landed near our drop zone, but the fighting was just as bad. The operation was supposed to end the war by Christmas. Instead, it turned into another grind, Another bloodbath. Lost more men, more faces to add to the collection of ghosts, more names I tried not to learn, more boys sent home in caskets or not sent home at all. Got wounded in October, shrapnel from a mortar, nothing serious. Just tore up my shoulder and arm, enough to get me evacuated to a field hospital, enough to get me out of the line for a few weeks. Felt guilty about it, relieved, but guilty. My men were still fighting, and I was in a hospital bed, safe, recovering, while they were dying. That's survivor's guilt. That's the burden of making it through when others don't. The constant question of why you? Why did you survive when better men died? What makes you special? What gives you the right? No answers. Never any answers. Just the question eating at you, making you feel like a fraud, like you don't deserve to be alive. Went back to the unit in November. They were preparing for another mission. Rumors of a German offensive, Bastogne. We'd be going in to reinforce. Just rumors at first, then orders. December 1944. 6 months since D-Day. Felt like 6 years. I'd aged in ways that had nothing to do with time. Had seen things, done things, lost things, changed in fundamental ways. The boy from Iowa who'd volunteered for the airborne was gone, replaced by this thing that knew how to kill. That could make decisions that resulted in death. That could sleep next to corpses and feel nothing. The war had made me into a soldier, but it had taken my humanity as payment, taken my innocence, my hope, my belief in anything good or pure or worth fighting for. I fought because that's what I did, because my men depended on me, because the mission required it. But I'd stopped believing it mattered, stopped thinking we were saving the world, just knew we were surviving. And that survival came at a cost that grew heavier every day. Bastogne was coming. Another battle, more dying, more chances to fail my men, more ghosts to carry. But what choice did I have? We were airborne. Airborne doesn't quit, doesn't surrender, doesn't stop. We just keep jumping, keep fighting, keep dying, keep pretending it matters, keep carrying the weight until it finally breaks us or the war finally ends, whichever comes first. Bastogne was hell frozen over, surrounded by Germans, outnumbered, outgunned, no winter clothing, no adequate supplies, just cold and snow and constant shelling and the certainty that we might all die in a Belgian forest. We held, because that's what paratroopers do. Because General McAuliffe said nuts when the Germans demanded surrender. Because we didn't have a choice, but holding cost. Cost men, cost blood, cost whatever pieces of sanity we had left. Private Chen froze to death in his foxhole. Just couldn't stay warm. Hypothermia took him while I was 3 feet away. Found him in the morning. Stiff, gone. Dead not from enemy action, but from cold and exhaustion and the simple fact that the human body has limits. Should have been able to prevent it, should have checked on him more, should have made him move around, keep circulation going, should have done something. But I'd been in my own foxhole, trying to survive my own cold, trying to make it through my own night. And Chen died because I failed to take care of my men. Add that to the list. Add that to the guilt. Add that to the reasons I can't sleep. The German artillery never stopped. Constant shelling. Tree bursts in the forest that sent shrapnel and wood fragments everywhere. You couldn't hide from it. Couldn't predict it. Just waited for the whistle and hoped it wasn't your turn. Corporal Davis lost his mind during a particularly heavy barrage. Just snapped. Started screaming. Couldn't stop. Tried to run. We had to tackle him, hold him down, sedate him with morphine. Evacuated him when the siege lifted. Shell shock, combat fatigue, whatever you wanted to call it. The mind breaking under pressure it wasn't designed to handle. Davis wasn't weak, wasn't a coward, just a human being pushed beyond human limits. Could happen to any of us. Was happening to all of us slowly, We just hid it better, functioned despite it, pushed through because stopping meant dying. The siege lifted after Christmas. Patton's Third Army broke through, relieved us. We'd held Bastogne, won the battle, saved the day, became heroes again. But I didn't feel like a hero, felt like a survivor, felt like I'd failed the men who died, failed Chen who froze, failed Davis who broke, failed all of them by not being good enough to keep them alive. We were pulled off the line in January 1945, sent back to France to rest. The 101st had been in combat almost continuously since D-Day. We were burnt out, used up, broken. I looked at myself in a mirror for the first time in months. Didn't recognize the person staring back. Hollow eyes, gaunt face. Expression of someone who'd seen too much and felt too little. 23 years old, and I looked ancient. That's when I broke. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just quietly came apart where nobody could see. Couldn't sleep. The nightmares were constant now. Every night was D-Day or Bastogne or Market Garden. Every night I watched my men die. Every night I failed them again. Started drinking heavily, needed it to sleep, needed it to not feel, needed it to get through another day of pretending to be functional. The other sergeants noticed, didn't say anything. They were doing the same thing, all of us trying to cope, all of us failing, all of us too broken to admit it. Got called in by the company commander in February, Captain Williams, good officer, cared about his men. He looked at me with concern. You okay, Carter? Was I okay? Number. Hadn't been okay since June 6th, since I'd left Wilson behind, since I'd watched Harrison die, since I'd sent Edwards to scout ahead, since Chen froze 3 feet away. Fine, sir. Just tired. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. But what could he do? We were all tired, all traumatized, all carrying more than we could handle. He couldn't pull everyone out. The war wasn't over. You've done good work, Sergeant. Real good. But everyone has limits. You've been in it since D-Day. If you need a break, what good would a break do? The ghosts would follow me. The guilt would follow me. Wilson and Harrison and Edwards and Chen and all the others would still be dead, still be on me. I'm fine, sir. Ready for the next mission. Another lie in a long string of lies. Lies I told him. Lies I told my men. Lies I told myself. The biggest lie, that I was fine, that I could keep going, that this wasn't destroying me. Truth was, I was gone. Whatever I'd been before the war was dead, killed somewhere between England and Germany, between the first jump and the 1,000th decision, between being human and becoming a killer. We jumped across the Rhine in March, last combat jump of the war for the 101st. By then, I was just going through the motions. Jump, land, fight, kill, lead, survive, all mechanical, all automatic. No feeling, no thought. Just functioning because that's what soldiers do. The war ended in May. Germany surrendered. Victory in Europe. We'd won. Saved the world from fascism. Became heroes. The greatest generation they'd start calling us. I stood in Germany on VE Day and felt nothing. No joy, no relief, no sense of accomplishment. Just emptiness, just exhaustion. Just the weight of 11 months of combat and all the dead men I carried with me. We'd won the war, but I'd lost something I couldn't name. Something essential. Something that made life worth living. The fighting was over, but the war inside me was just beginning. And I didn't know if I'd survive that one. I came home in October 1945. Landed in New York to a hero's welcome. Ticker tape parade. Crowds cheering. People thanking us for saving the world. The great victory celebration. I stood on that ship and looked at the Statue of Liberty and felt like a fraud. These people thought I was a hero, thought I'd done something noble, thought the war had been glorious. They didn't know, couldn't know. About Wilson left behind with his broken leg, about Harrison cut in half, about Edwards stepping on that mine, about Chen freezing to death, about all of them, about what it took, what it cost, what it turned us into. I went back to Iowa, back to the farm. My parents were overjoyed. Their son had survived, had come home. They threw a party. The whole town came. Everyone wanted to hear stories, wanted to know what D-Day was like, what it felt like to jump into Normandy, what it felt like to be a hero. I told them sanitized versions, talked about the training, about jumping with the guys, about camaraderie, left out the drowning, the killing, the decisions that got men killed, the nightmares, the guilt, the way I'd stopped being human somewhere in France. My father knew. He'd been in the First War. He looked at me with understanding, with recognition. He saw what I was hiding, what I was carrying. He pulled me aside one night. "It doesn't get easier," he said. "The war never really ends. Not for us. Not for men who've seen what we've seen." He was right. The war in Europe ended in May, but my war continued. Every night, every time I closed my eyes, every time a loud noise made me dive for cover, every time I saw young men and thought about how easily they could die. I tried to adjust, got a job at the feed store, dated a girl from town, went through the motions of normal life, but nothing felt real. Nothing felt meaningful after what I'd experienced. How do you care about selling grain when you've watched men die? How do you worry about normal problems when you've had to decide who lives and who dies? How do you connect with people who've never experienced combat when that's all you can think about? The engagement ended after 6 months. She was sweet, patient, tried to understand. But how could she? How could anyone who wasn't there understand what we'd been through, understand what we'd become? I started drinking heavily, same pattern as in the war. Needed it to sleep, needed it to cope, needed it to function. My father recognized the signs. He'd done the same thing after his war. "You need to talk to someone," he said. But who? Who could I talk to? The VA doctors didn't understand. The chaplains gave platitudes about sacrifice and service. The other veterans, we'd drink together but never talk about it, never admit how broken we were. I left Iowa in 1947. Couldn't take the small town anymore. Moved to Chicago. Got a job in a factory. Kept to myself. Built a life of isolation and routine and slow suicide by alcohol. The nightmares never stopped. 79 years old now, and I still wake up screaming. Still see Wilson's face. Still hear Harrison's body hit the ground. Still watch Edwards die from my decision. Still feel Chen's cold body in the foxhole next to mine. 79 years old, and June 6th, 1944 is still the most real day of my life. More real than anything that came after. More real than 54 years of trying to be normal. More real than marriages and jobs and attempts at building a life. I married eventually, had kids, built a career, did all the things you're supposed to do, but I was never fully present, never fully there, always partially back in Normandy, back in Bastogne, back in those moments when men died and I survived. My children don't understand why their father is distant, why I flinch at fireworks, why I can't watch war movies, why I drink, why I wake up screaming. They think I'm damaged, broken, wrong somehow. They're right. The war broke something in me that never healed, never could heal. You don't experience what we experienced and come out whole. You don't make the decisions I made and live guilt-free. You don't survive when so many others don't and ever feel like you deserve to. They call us the greatest generation, say we saved the world, built the post-war prosperity, won the good war, Maybe that's true for some. Maybe some men came back whole, came back able to move forward, came back able to be normal. I wasn't one of them. None of the men I knew were. We came back broken, traumatized, changed in ways that couldn't be changed back. And we carried it silently, suffered alone, died slowly from wounds that never showed. D-Day was the beginning. The jump into darkness over Normandy, the chaos, the fear, the violence, the moment everything changed. They made it legendary, made it into the turning point of the war, the heroic invasion, the day we began liberating Europe. And it was all those things. But it was also the day I stopped being me, the day I became something else, something that could function in combat but couldn't function in peace, something that could lead men to their deaths but couldn't lead a normal life, something broken pretending to be whole. Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane takes a special kind of crazy. That's what they said, and they were right. But the real crazy was thinking we could do what we did and come home unchanged, thinking we could see what we saw and still be normal, thinking we could carry all those dead men and not be crushed by the weight. I'm 79 years old, 54 years since D-Day, more than half a century, a lifetime for most people. For me, it's all been epilogue. Everything since June 6th, 1944 has been aftermath. The real story ended in Normandy. The rest has just been a long, slow dying from wounds that never heal. They thanked us for our service, called us heroes, built memorials, made movies, celebrated D-Day as the greatest military operation in history. And it was. We accomplished the mission, won the battle, changed the course of the war, saved millions of lives, defeated evil. But nobody talks about the cost. Not the ones who died. They get honored and remembered. The cost to those who survived, to men like me who came back but never really left, who've spent 54 years fighting a war that ended in 1945. Wilson, Harrison, Edwards, Chen, Mitchell, Davis, all the others, they're still with me, still dying, still looking at me with those eyes that ask why them and not me. I don't have an answer, never did, never will. All I know is that I jumped out of a plane over Normandy on June 6th, 1944, and I've been falling ever since, still falling, after all these years, still falling through that dark night, still waiting to land, still waiting for the war to finally be over. But it never ends, not really, not for us. The fighting stopped. The dying continued, just slower, quieter, hidden behind closed doors and brave faces and the lie that we were fine. We weren't fine. We never were. We never will be. That's the real cost of D-Day. The cost nobody talks about. The cost we carry alone. The cost of being a hero in a war we never really survived.